Hello wonderful people, today I want to talk to you about something that we kind of discard when we first get our M6 Mark II, and that is the 15 to 45 kit lens. This little lens is something that, like you guys probably did as well, the second you get your camera, you take it out of the box, you put this lens on, you have a bit of a play, okay, yeah, that's cool, and then you start buying new lenses. You get the 16mm Sigma, for example, which is the first lens that I grabbed. That's my vlogging lens, that's my wide angle landscape lens, but 15mm is actually wider. So why wouldn't I use this more? Okay, so I guess the thing that prevents this lens from being a lens people reach for, it's not the focal lengths. It's not the 15 to 45. Those are very functional, very useful focal lengths. It's the f-stop. 3.5 isn't so bad. At its widest, 15mm, 3.5, that's quite usable. I use 3.5 for most of my video work. Most of my lenses are 3.5 at their minimum. But 6.3, yeah, that's kind of a lot. So it's not very good at its most useful focal length, which is probably 45mm with portraits and things, because you're not going to get great bokeh with that. That's where you're grabbing something like the EF 50mm. But it would be useful if it was a bit lower. So 5.6 I think is not so bad. You can get a little bit of background separation with that, but really I can see why the most useful focal length isn't very useful. However, in some scenarios it is. So landscape photography, quite often we're looking for depth. We're not looking for as much bokeh. If we're looking for bokeh, it's quite often more in the foreground than it is in the background, depending on what we're shooting. But for wider landscapes, it's actually a pretty good lens. So in the video that I went to the South Island with my friend to drive a Sentry, you can watch that video, it's linked up here. And the reason I'm sitting off to the side of this whole video, which you might have thought was strange up to now, is that I want to show you this. This is a great photo. I love this photo. I'm thinking about printing this photo very soon to give it to a friend for a gift. This was shot on the little 15mm. It was at 15mm, but it was also shot at, and if I get my phone out so I can actually check, so I shot this at f/18. So 6.3 wasn't really a problem when it came to landscape. If I just scroll down to the widest, you're looking at the same image, wider. I actually quite like this one. I like there's a bit more foreground. The mountains are a bit far in the distance. I would have liked them to be a bit more grand, but as an image, it looks pretty good. You've still got the reflection, you've got the weeds in the front. This is fully in focus. This is at f/18 as well. Now, if I was smart, I would have stopped this down and let that foreground blur out a little bit. Here's another one. Same location, but further up the hill away from the lake. So as you can see, it is possible to get a good landscape image from this little lens. Here's a couple more that I took on the ferry on the way back. As you can see, this one's got some pretty good detail in the water, in the hills, the colors, it's a bit golden. This one's one of my favorites. I really like this photo. It's a great little vista of the fjord, it's not a fjord, is it? It's a great vista of the sound as you're coming through from Picton. This one is shot at f/18. So when it comes to getting a landscape shot and getting that sort of wide vista, it doesn't really matter. This one was zoomed in. This one was zoomed in probably close to 45mm when I took this one, rather than being a wider shot, because I wanted to get those hills in the background. And it did just that. It looks really, really good. And one more, this is coming through the end into the Cook Strait, and you can see the detail in the rocks and the edge here, this one here, and also this one off to the side. The color's good, the detail's good. It can be a sharp lens. It is a restrictive lens. We'll give it that. But I think it is more useful than we think, especially if we're doing landscape photography. And I've since started pulling this out a little bit more when I want something a bit more compact, taking this into the city, for example, that sort of thing. If I want a compact kit, I can take like my little 9mm, manual focus, and then I can take this little one for both vlogging and also for you know, when I want a autofocus sort of scenario. I just think it is a good lens. It's not a great lens. Nobody's trying to convince anybody that this is a great lens. If this is a great lens, it would probably stop at about f4.5 to 5, but it doesn't. It is plasticky, but it's got good stabilization for vlogging. It's got good color accuracy, I feel. And if you're using a higher f-stop to capture a larger, wider vista, I think this is a very, very good lens for those scenarios. So if you want to go on a small hike and you only want to take a tiny lens and only want to take wide vistas, this is a great little lens. Yeah, I just feel it doesn't get any love, and it's much more useful than you think. I have vlogged most of my studio videos with this lens. I've only recently sort of switched out to the 18 to 135, and that's just so I can have a bit more sort of control over my zoom. Oh, there we go. I don't think it takes as sharp an image as the EF glass that I have. The zooms that I have, I think that the larger elements within that lens tend to give you a little bit more crispness to your images. I think this little one with its little lenses is probably struggling a little bit when it comes to the pure clarity. But I think the M6 Mark II more than makes up for it with its higher megapixel count, so that you can actually draw a lot more of that detail out when you're cropping in. So you don't have to worry about the reach of this being a little bit shallow. I think in a perfect world, this little lens would be a 15 to 70, and it would only go as high as f5.6. That would make this lens like a banger of a lens. But as it stands, just don't throw it in your bag and forget about it. I think pull it out occasionally, have a play with it, especially if you're doing landscape photography. I think you'll find that it'll surprise you, as it did me, and you'll get some of your favorite shots out of it, as I have. Thanks, little lens. You're good. I like you. And I promise to give you a bit more love in the future. Thanks for watching.